Welcome back to Mindset Rebooted. I'm Romi Sunga.
And I'm Sam Hay. Today we're going to be talking about Sac State's new MBA program online. And we're also going to be talking about how the military lifted its COVID restrictions and what that means for you.
So Sac State recently announced that they launched their fully online MBA program.
Yeah.
And I brought that up to you because you know me, I'm very big into a lot of alternative education technology, where it's no longer the formal setting. And I'm like, okay, formal schools are starting to adopt alternative education platforms. And for a second, I was like, what's the point of the formal school now if they're just copying what other people are doing with this online stuff? What's your take on that?
Yeah, honestly, I like it. But it's also a result of them having to get with the times, right? Like if there weren't other alternative forms of education, they would have just maintained the status quo, right? So I think competition creates, people becoming more innovative, and I appreciate that. So I'm glad that they're doing it. That's my take on that. I also think that we need to be able to measure the quality of this alternative route. Like I don't know the granular details of their program, but I would like to see what it results in. So like if someone does this, does it guarantee them some type of position later on? Now that's not to advocate for, oh yeah, let's just give everyone equality of outcome, but it's really just like, hey, in terms of equality of opportunity, what are the benefits? Because I can clearly see the benefit of taking like a trade school or a boot camp, right? Because it'll be less money, and a lot of these things guarantee a career that's going to be very, very, profitable for someone long term. So I would just encourage anybody who's gonna do any type of alternative route, including Sac State's MBA program online, is really weigh out the pros and cons. Think about what this gets you in the end versus, I'm just getting an MBA, because I think whatever we do, whatever we dedicate our time to, it should be with purpose.
I like that. And I think what we're really touching on is the ROI. Mm-hmm. What is the return of investment in studying with so-and-so platform and the time it takes to study.
Yeah.
Right. As you mentioned, a lot of the trade work and other like STEM boot camps, there's a guarantee that we know that if you invest 8 to 12 weeks in this boot camp, you will be able to get this kind of a job with this kind of a wage. That's the ROI. Now, with regards to a lot of these online MBA stuff, because I've seen other schools get with it too. And where I started thinking, I was like, is that online MBA really worth what they're trying to sell it for? Because we have to think about it. Even though it's still online, it's still attached to a university. And a university, especially a traditional university, usually has a lot of fees that go with it.
Yep.
Right? That's why a lot of people get into student debt, which we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. When you said earlier that the schools need to change or else they're going to maintain their status quo, I actually think they're losing their position in society, because if you want to maintain your status quo, then nothing changes, nothing grows, and nothing also decreases. But I think they're decreasing because they're noticing all these higher education schools are noticing that alternative education is a booming business, and it's growing year over year ridiculously fast.
And that's their fault.
Whose fault?
The traditional school system.
Why?
It's their fault because they have not adapted with the times, right? Like back in the day, how we were taught was, hey, you go to school, right? You pay your tuition, you get your degree, and that's going to be your key to success. But people are experiencing it and they're like, well, I just graduated. I have nothing but debt up to my neck. I'm not even guaranteed a position in the career field that I just studied, even though you swore to me that it was going to be extremely valuable. And then I come out and I'm struggling. I'm working like, at Starbucks. No knock on Starbucks. I'm just saying, like, I'm using it as an example. I'm working.
It's not in the field that they studied for.
That I studied for, right? And so, when you have an alternative route coming out, think about it. For example, what's the purpose of an alternative route? It's to provide something different than what was once there. It's an alternative. There would be no need for an alternative if they were doing what they needed to do. Problem is, if you go to school right now, you will look at the not the syllabus, but the curriculum, and it's not up to date. It takes years and years for curriculums to just be updated, right? So they're never catching, what's relevant right now. They're using, generalities. Like, for example, I was in an advanced business writing class where the instructor was teaching, and then you need to make sure that, you do your cover letters like this, and everyone, cover letter, you got to have this cover letter,
No one reads those anymore.
No one, exactly.
The only people that require that are higher education and public positions.
Exactly.
But in the private sector, no one cares because they're just looking at your social media and your LinkedIn.
Exactly. And that's just a real life example. And honestly, this was as recent as 2022, early 2022. And so that's my whole point. It's like, when that's part of your curriculum, but it's not even relevant, well, then that's not classified as good information, right? Because good information, it needs to be relevant, it needs to be timely, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be objective. I forgot all the different characteristics of good information, but those are some of the key ingredients to good information. And so when public school is or any institution is giving you information that is no longer timely and relevant and accurate, well, now there's a problem. And so that's where you have these alternative forms of schools, such as like tech boot camps and things like that are staying current with the times. Why? Because their instructors actually work in the fields that they're teaching. They're doing the day-to-day, and they're giving you information as relevant as today, right? Now, that means I'm learning from someone who's already active, not just giving me theory, but they're also someone who's just relevant. They're absolutely relevant, and they have my best interest at heart. They're not lying to me. They're actually doing it. And I know that you care about me. Why? Because you are doing this day to day, and you're already successful in the field, but then you're taking the time to give back to me, and you're giving me your wealth of knowledge, which I can now take and I can be successful too. So I am a huge advocate of alternative forms of education. I'm glad that institutions such as Sac State are implementing the online programs. One, because people need flexibility, especially since COVID has passed. We need people who are institutions who are adaptable to the work from home lifestyle and things like that. People are changing, and institutions need to change too. And it's not okay for them to just expect for us to go with the old model, right? That was the problem. They expected that we would do that, but no one's drinking the Kool-Aid anymore. We're not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well, I think also what we're also finding is that these alternative education businesses, because they're businesses, they're not accredited usually.
Of course.
So they're just a certificate from this one company that says you know how to do this. What they're doing too is that they provide these type of guarantees where they're actively trying to get you a job while you're in the program and after you're in the program. There's usually, and the thing is, that's their incentive.
Yep.
They're incentivized to provide a good product. The product is speed to getting a career.
Yep.
That's what these alternative education businesses, that's their product. And so if they cannot have a good product, if they don't get you a good job within whatever like guarantees they give, maybe 6 months after you complete the program, no one's going to buy their product.
Yep.
And so that company is going to fold.
Yeah,
because that's their incentive. With with formal education, I'm not quite sure that's really the incentive. Because I'm like, if the incentive was for you to actually help people get skills and knowledge for a career of their interest, then you would also help them get jobs. And by the way, you would probably also say, hey, you're about to take out a $30,000 loan this year and then another $30,000 loan next year. Well, hold up. The career field you're going into, entry career field, the entry salary is maybe $40,000 a year. Is that really a good ratio?
Right.
I don't, when I see them allow people to take out all these gigantic loans for low incoming careers, I think that's a conflict of interest there.
Of course.
And I think seeing these new adoptions of alternative tech, not specifically alternative technology, but the concept of alternative tech, because that is also meaning that they're starting to realize there's a different incentive now. And so, with these higher education universities, they're still a business. They are still a business. So if the incentive is to get more students, which means you get more money because of the students are paying and all this stuff, then that means you need to have a good product, which means you need to get them careers.
Yeah, I agree. And like going back to what you said about like the whole like accreditation stuff, like let's just think about it. For example, we're so used to schools saying, oh yeah, I'm regionally accredited with this. Cool. Got it. That's what we were taught back in the day. Like, oh yeah, this is a good school to go to. They have this accreditation, all that stuff. All right, got it. Here's the thing. Like you already explained, There's no guaranteed position, career field that you graduate
no guarantee, and no actual, sorry to interrupt, but no actual like, hey, let's spend the last semester or quarter of your career or your academic career actively trying to get jobs.
Yeah.
Like, there's no like, hey, this whole class, we're going to work on applying for jobs, researching jobs, networking with recruiters and all that stuff. I don't really see that. They just say do it on your own time.
So I have seen that. I've seen it like some schools are getting better at doing that. They have certain programs that actually do that, but I still don't think it's enough. And the reason why I don't think it's enough is because, so for example, the boot camps that we were talking about that aren't necessarily accredited, but they have skin in the game because they are guaranteeing you a position. They're active in helping you get this job. They're giving you that hand-holding experience. They have the best accreditation of all, not by some other institution, but from the people. Why? It's that word of mouth. The word of mouth marketing, man. It's like, if I go through this boot camp and it works for me, I'm going to tell Romi.
Yeah. Well, so you have the word of mouth, but what you also have before word of mouth is success rate.
Yeah.
No one's going to talk about your program if it's not successful.
Yeah, of course. No one's going to, right? And so they have that on their side. Schools don't really have that on their side. Let's just think about it. Because when I think about how I measure success, if I'm thinking about it from an education standpoint, how I measure success is if the person who graduated learned enough skills to then move into a career field that they studied for and to be successful by applying those skills, right? That to me is how I would measure the success, and their earnings outweigh what they paid for the education. That to me is how I would measure success through traditional education. How I don't see that as a success because people are in crazy debt. That's the reason why the whole student loan debt and, the whole like, oh man, should we, forgive student loans? That's the reason why this is a big issue, a big topic today, right? It's because of this whole student loan stuff. Like, people don't see the value in it. You would not be crying about student loans if what you were making wiped away your loans. But you're going to cry about it because that's just not the reality. And people are paying that for years and years and years and years and years. And so the math ain't mathin', folks. Return on investment is just not there. So alternative routes of education, so for Sac State's MBA program or any program that is considered, an educational route, make sure you are providing value to people. Make sure that when they spend their money, they are able to get something greater in return. That to me makes it a win-win situation for everyone. That's the best business situation. When I get something that helps me to win and you get something that helps you to win. It shouldn't be I win, you lose. Other than that, the math isn't mathin'. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's your man, Sam. Hey, admittedly, I really don't like being on social media, but I do love building relationships with other people. So the best way you can do that is by connecting with me on LinkedIn. Hit me up. I look forward to hearing from you. Let's get back to the episode.
What's another alternative way to actually get a higher education? We were talking about all these loans and stuff like that. I don't want to get into loans. And I know you did something for you personally and lots of other people in the U.S. They do something that affords them the ability to get an education without getting into a lot of student debt.
Yeah. Well, how about zero student debt?
Oh, I like that. Or how about getting paid for it?
How about getting paid for it? Man, in case you don't already know, man, I think the best thing out there is that post 9/11 GI Bill, right? Y'all know I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I served with honor and pride, and I loved my military stint. But one of the best things that I love about it, and that actually still pays me today, is the GI Bill, right? When I served, what did the GI Bill give me? It means that it covered all of my school tuition, all of it, tuition and fees, book stipend. They give you book stipend. And then on top of that, a housing allowance. So whatever region your school is located in, they are giving you money to cover your housing based on the cost of living of that school. So for example, if you're someone smart like myself and you're going to a school in San Francisco, right, where it has the highest BAH, you can look it up and you can do the math yourself, right? And you're getting all that tax-free on top of your tuition being covered. Now you're getting paid to learn as opposed to you paying to learn, right? There's so many people who are paying to learn and it's hurting them. I'm earning while learning,
I love that.
Learning while learning.
Well, man, when I went through college, I had to take 2 part-time jobs on top of doing full-time school in order to pay my bills, in order to get food, and even in order to pay tuition. Oh, man, I could just imagine how much more fun I would have had not having to work while I was in school.
Oh, yeah. Bro, and here's the other thing, too. So I know it's not as easy to join the military as some people make it seem. Like, that's been a huge ordeal. Like, it's like, dang, I tried to go in the military and, it didn't work out for me. So,
sorry to interrupt, but I think that might have went over some people's heads, because the way I've always seen it is like, oh, man, you want to join the military? You must have been like a deadbeat. And now you're going to join the military. But you're saying it's actually hard to get into the military.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not easy. Well, actually, let me double back. It's becoming easier now, right? Because at this point in time, at the time of this recording, the military needs to increase its manning. It needs to up its numbers. Apparently not as many people are joining. And after, the whole COVID stuff happened, people were being kicked out because they didn't take the vaccine, and some people weren't able to join because they didn't have the vaccine. Well, that hurt the military's numbers. And the only way we can continue to fortify this country, protect ourselves from all enemies, foreign and domestic, is to have a strong military. So I'm a huge advocate for the military, but that means we need to allow for qualified people to join. And since now the branches have now lifted the vaccine mandate requirements, a lot of people are now able to join more than before. And so if you are someone who is looking to actually earn while learning, as opposed to getting into debt up to your neck, right? This is a great option. And some people did think like, oh yeah, if you join the military, that means that you're a failure in life because you didn't have any other option. I'm like, bro, it is one of the best things running. That is a way to success. That was better than a college scholarship for me. You know why? Because when I was serving, I was going to school on the military's dime without using the GI Bill. That was while I was serving, right? So I achieved my associates while I was on the military's dime. And then when I got out, I was able to get the GI Bill. And then there's a whole other GI Bill on top of your GI Bill called Vet Tech, which is to help veterans get tech, get tech skills through like certain tech boot camps.
And we know how much tech pays.
We know how much tech pays.
Easy 6 figures for everybody.
Easy 6 figures, right? And then you can also, here's the other thing. If you're going to school and you are getting the GI Bill, a lot of people don't know this, and I want you to listen to this. If you are a veteran who is using your GI Bill right now, you can get extra funding if you choose to work at a vet center while you are serving. While you are going to school. So vet centers, they obviously, if you don't know,
like the academic campus vet center, is that what you're saying?
So vet centers, they are dedicated to helping out war veterans, more specifically them, with like certain mental health rehabilitation and things like that.
Oh, the general vet center. Okay.
But if you are someone who's going to school, you can go to one of your local vet centers, and if you end up working there, they will actually pay you, and your income while you're going to school is actually tax-free. It's a benefit that's also part of your GI Bill. So you're getting extra money. I know somebody right now who works at a vet center who he does his schoolwork while he's working. He's just there answering the desk, but he's knocking out schoolwork, and he's also getting paid while he's helping out. So it's just another way. There's so many benefits to serving, not to mention veterans preference. It's just so much. It pays you more to serve, right? Then VA home loan. I don't even want to just dig into the weeds. I can do segments all day.
Let's pull it back. Let's pull it back into the education, right?
Yeah.
If joining the military will give us an alternative access to get degrees that will give us high-paying careers after the military, but there's a caveat though, right? Because I know that some people's military experience isn't that great. There's a lot of those still. There's always going to be a positive or negative for something so big.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question, though. Like, when I know about joining the military, you have to sign that 4-year contract, maybe 6-year contract. Some people, why would that be worth it to get this degree? Because wouldn't that be really, I'm actually paying for my degree by giving you 4 years of my life. Yeah. And for some people, they might be like, I don't think that's worth it. What do you say to that?
Worth it. When we talk about alternative forms of education, one of the best alternative forms of education is real world experience. Okay.
OTJ.
Yep.
On the job training.
On the job training. And not just that. I mean, like literally real world experience. I was able to see the world. I left the United States. I went overseas to the Middle East, and I was able to learn about different cultures, meet different people, and I was able to actually understand things from a real life perspective, one that you don't get through just looking at things through media, and that you don't get just through textbooks, because those things are flawed. It benefits whoever is creating that content. But when you get to go into those different places and you get to form your own perspective based on your own experiences, you absolutely learn that, one, all around the world, we are more alike than we are different. But then two, whatever is going on right here in the United States is not a real world like
example.
Exactly. It's not a real world example, right? So like a lot of topics that we talk about, that's a heavily debated issue here in the United States, it's not even a thing overseas. Like they believe completely different things. And yet people are like, oh, you need to get with the times. This is the world we're living in. No. This is the United States that we are living in. This is not the world that we are living in. So one of the things that I loved about serving was I was able to get real world experience and actually meet people, understand and learn new cultures. That's the other thing. Also, it allows for you to see that there is more than just the 14-mile radius that you grew up in, right? Like there are other places that you can live. You can actually understand like, oh, you know what? I don't have to go back to that area that I really didn't like growing up. I actually, the world is my oyster. You know what I mean? You can network with people, leveraging those connections. Oh my God. That is some of the best forms of, it's not alternative education, but it somewhat is, right? Because essentially you're getting to learn from people and they're able to put you on game about how to go about different things. They teach you new hustles, things like that. That's education, right? That's what education is. It's the acquisition of knowledge. They're teaching you things that you're not even learning inside a school's building. And then you can apply it. And you have someone who has real world experience doing it. So it's not just theory. It's actually something that is tried and true. So those are some of the things that I loved about serving. And I definitely think that anyone who is listening to this, who is thinking about joining the military, you should do it for those reasons.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. Mm-hmm. When you join the military, what would you recommend someone, like for someone who's 18, I automatically think, okay, you should just enlist. But someone who's maybe 23, 24, who's a bit more old or a little bit has more life experience, do you recommend they go the enlistment route or try and find a way to commission?
I think that just depends on your goals, right? Like, commissioning is not for everyone, right? Like, yeah, of course, being a commissioned officer, you will get paid more in the military, right? And you will have more responsibility and respect somewhat in terms of rank, in the military. But the enlistment route is still cool because, one, most of the personnel are enlisted. So if you have peers who are enlisted, you get to learn even more because you have a whole bunch of years of experience around you, right? As opposed to you being isolated and not being able to quote unquote fraternize with the help. It's just really what it is, right? Also, the lower the rank, the more options you have in terms of where you get to go. It's like a pyramid, okay? So you have the base of the pyramid, which is going to be wider, where the lower ranking people are. And then as you get closer and closer to the top, you're limited in your options and where you can go, right? So that's another thing to think about. So for me, when I came in as enlisted, I had a whole bunch of orders to choose from. And I was able to choose California, that was my first duty station. Whereas someone else who's an officer, they may not really have that option. They might be like, hey, we have a need for you here. And then as I ended up moving up the ranks, I started to see how I was more and more limited, because as you become higher up, you have more people that you're managing. So they might need you in a specific place. So those are just like some of the advantages. Now, outside of that, it really is a pick your poison kind of thing, because if you're an officer, that's real world leadership experience that you can have on your resume. Like, oh yeah, I was an officer of this, blah, 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 blah. And so it really is just about where you're at in your life and what you're thinking. What is your goal post-military? That's another thing. Post-military goals, it has a lot to do with it. So there is no right or wrong answer. It's just about what's your goal and which route is best for you.
Yeah, so it goes back to ROI. I want to just put this in there too. You could kind of do best of both worlds. You could enlist, and then you could find yourself into a position where they want you or they need you to become an officer. Mm-hmm. So they'll be like, all right, we're going to sponsor you to go get your degree. Right now, it's not part of your GI. While you're still enlisted, and then you could become an officer that way as well. And mm-hmm. then you have your extra GI after. You can use it. And I think there's a big confusion too, that people think a GI is only for that specific veteran. I know some veterans who use a GI for their sons or their daughters. They transfer the GI to someone else.
They do. Let me touch on that since you brought it up. Transferring it, though, it comes with a commitment. So first you have to serve at least 6 years, and then you have to commit to serving at least another 4. So that way they're guaranteed that they got at least 10 out of you. They do that specifically because most people who end up getting to their 10-year mark, they're like, oh, well, I'm already halfway to retirement. I might as well finish.
Yep.
So that's how they go about that. That's their thinking. So there are other ways in which you can do it. So for example, most military veterans will qualify for some type of VA disability compensation when they get out, right? I mean, even if it's for something like tinnitus, which is hearing loss, like for me, or ringing in the ears. I know I definitely had that when I was working around planes, right? All the loud engines, the combustion, boom, 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 right? So check this out. There's certain states, such as California, Texas, whatever, that will allow for you, as long as you have at least 10% VA disability compensation, that will allow for you to be able to get education for free and allow for your children. So currently in the state of California, if you want your kids to go to school, to public university, they can go for free as a disabled vet, even with at least 10%. That's as of today, the time of this recording. That can change, but as of right now. So there are other ways for you to be able to get a return on your investment without having to commit to something that you don't want to commit to long term.
I like it, bro. I got nothing else to say about this. Like like whoever's listening right now, I feel that we've provided so much evidence of how you could pursue, one, a military career to serve your country and have patriotic pride, mm-hmm. but two, a way for you to actually have a lifestyle and a career post-military life.
Yes.
Actually be able to have a very lucrative life that maybe some of us didn't have an opportunity to be exposed to when we were young.
Oh, let me add one thing to that. Other part is when you serve, you're building your resume while you're serving. So when you transition out, even without a formal degree, a lot of times that on-the-job training through your military experience, it will transition you into a role that was similar to whatever it was you were doing in the military that can pay well. I can speak from personal experience that is actually the case. And that right there is even better than a degree that someone got into massive debts for and still didn't end up in the career field that you ended up in without having to spend all that money on a degree. Yeah, sorry. Just had to
No, I think that was a very good point to say. Yeah. I got nothing else to add. Anything you want to finish up with?
Yeah. I know you got great value out of it, so you should have been subscribed to this podcast. Make sure you do so right now. And until next time, mindset rebooted. Sometimes when things go wrong, you can't blame life. Cause when you shot your shot, what was your aim like? What were you targeting? Cause if it ain't right and you still go with it, then that is on you.